7 points, that is the gap. Arsenal sit at the top of the Premier League table right now. Not second, not third, first. And Manchester City, the team that has haunted this club for the last 3 years, dropped points again this week, held to a 2-2 draw at home by Nottingham Forest. But here is the thing that nobody is talking about calmly enough. While Arsenal are winning matches and collecting awards and being praised by legends, their captain is not on the pitch. Martin Ødegaard has missed the last 2 league games. Their centre-back turned his ankle against Chelsea and did not make the Brighton squad. Ben White has not played in 3 matches and still has no return date. And Mikel Merino is confirmed out for the rest of the season after surgery on his right foot. 4 key players out right now at the most important moment of the season. And yet Arsenal beat Brighton 1-0 on Wednesday night and moved further clear at the top of the table. So the question I want you to sit with right now before we get into everything is this: if Arsenal are doing this without those players, what happens when they come back? Stay with me, because this week has given us a lot of answers. Let us start with the most important football news coming out of the Arsenal camp right now, and that is the situation with Martin Ødegaard. The Norway national team manager, Ståle Solbakken, has now spoken publicly about the Arsenal captain's condition, and here is exactly what he said. He said, "There is nothing serious about Martin. The most important thing is that he recovers completely and is good for us in the summer." He then added, "For those of us who care about the World Cup, it is not a disaster that he is getting some breaks now." And crucially, he followed that by saying he is going to rebuild and be crucial for Arsenal in April, May, and maybe even late March. Now, let me be very clear about what we know regarding this injury. Ødegaard first picked up a minor knee issue during Arsenal's 1-1 draw at Brentford last month. He did return and played against Tottenham after that. However, he has since been sidelined again. He has now missed Arsenal's last 2 league games, which were against Chelsea and Brighton. He was not available for either of those matches. So that is the confirmed situation. Ødegaard is out. The Norway boss says it is not serious, and the projected return window is somewhere between late March and April or May. Now, here is my analysis of this situation. The fact that the Norway manager is speaking publicly and confidently about this is actually a positive signal. He is not being vague or evasive. He is framing it clearly as a managed recovery, not a medical emergency. The language he used is deliberate. He said he is going to rebuild. That word rebuild is important. It suggests this is a controlled process. Arsenal are not rushing Ødegaard back. They are managing his workload carefully, heading into the most critical part of the season. But here is the challenge. The reality for the club is that Ødegaard is their captain and their creative engine. Without him, Arsenal have had to adjust how they operate in midfield. And while they have still been winning, the texture of their play is different. He will be crucial in the run. Solbakken himself said the words, "April and May, those are the months that will decide the Premier League title." If Ødegaard is back and fit for that period, Arsenal's chances improve significantly. But every extra week he misses is a week where other teams can close the gap. That is the simple truth. Staying on injuries, Mikel Arteta himself has confirmed a concern around William Saliba. During Arsenal's match against Chelsea, Saliba turned his ankle. Arteta described it by saying he managed to finish the game somehow, but he was too sore to play against Brighton. So Saliba missed the Brighton match. That is confirmed. However, the timing of the FA Cup 5th round tie against Mansfield Town on Saturday gives Saliba additional days to recover before the next major fixture, which is the Champions League clash away at Bayer Leverkusen. Here is the analysis. Arteta's wording is actually reassuring when you read it carefully. He said Saliba was too sore, not that he had suffered a structural injury. There was no mention of scans or extended absence. The fact that he is expected to use the Mansfield game as extra recovery time suggests the medical team believe he will be available for Leverkusen. That is the priority. The Champions League away leg at Leverkusen is a massive match, and you want your best centre-back available for that. The Mansfield Cup tie, with respect to Mansfield, is an opportunity to rotate. It is also an opportunity to manage the bodies of key players. Arteta will almost certainly be careful with Saliba here. There are 2 more injury situations that need addressing. Ben White remains sidelined. He has now missed Arsenal's last 3 matches. There is still no clear timeline for his return. The situation with White is frustratingly unclear. No specific injury detail has been provided publicly and no return date has been given. The evidence suggests Arsenal are being careful with this one. 3 consecutive absences without a timeline is not ideal, but it also tells you the club is not willing to risk him before he is ready. The more serious situation is Mikel Merino, and this one is confirmed and significant. Merino underwent surgery on his right foot last month, and Arteta has been clear about the timescale. He said, "You are talking about bone healing, so you need to be patient. You respect the timings." And then he added these words, "We are talking about months, whether it is 3, 4 or 5, we do not know." Beyond that, it has now been reported that Arteta has granted Merino permission to travel to Spain to continue his rehabilitation. The idea behind this decision is for him to be with his friends and family, which is considered vital for his recovery. And the conclusion on Merino's availability is this: he is out for the rest of the season. That is confirmed. My analysis here is straightforward but important. Losing Merino for the remainder of the campaign is a real blow, not a catastrophic one, but a real one. He was brought to add depth and quality to the midfield. The fact that Arsenal have continued to win without him shows the squad has depth. But depth gets tested over a long season with multiple competitions. The Merino absence means other midfielders carry a heavier load. Rice, in particular, has been asked to do an enormous amount of work this season. That brings us to our next story, and what a story this is. Declan Rice has won the Player of the Year award at the 2026 London Football Awards. This was announced at the event, and it is a deserved recognition for a player who has been absolutely central to everything Arsenal have done this season. But the award itself was almost secondary to what Rice said at the event, because his words were striking, and I want to read them to you directly because they matter. Rice said, "We do not talk about past seasons, about how we lost the title or finished second. We focus on how to handle the current situation, being top of the Premier League, competing in the Champions League and chasing all 4 trophies. We do not care about the noise." Now stop and think about what those words communicate. This is not a player thinking about history or fear or past failure. This is a player who is locked into the present with complete mental clarity. He acknowledged the past briefly and then dismissed it entirely. His focus is forward. Arsenal are top of the Premier League. They are competing in the Champions League. They are in the FA Cup. All 4 trophies remain possible. And Rice is saying that is where our heads are. That is leadership. That is exactly the mentality a squad needs when they are in a title race with real pressure mounting from all directions. The noise Rice refers to includes media pressure, criticism and the weight of previous near misses. He is telling you that none of that enters the Arsenal dressing room. That is a powerful statement, and it was not just Rice who had a night to remember. Arsenal absolutely swept the 2026 London Football Awards. The Gunners won 5 awards on the night. Mikel Arteta took Manager of the Year. David Raya won Goalkeeper of the Year. An Arsenal player won the Men's Player in the Community Champion Award. Declan Rice won the Premier League Player of the Year, and an Arsenal Women's player won the WSL Player of the Year. 5 awards, 1 club, on 1 night. My analysis on this is not complicated. When a club dominates an awards ceremony like this, it reflects sustained excellence across multiple departments. It is not just the first team performing, it is the goalkeeper being elite. It is the manager making great decisions. It is players giving back to the community. It is the women's team performing at the highest level. This is what a well-run, high-functioning football club looks like. Arsenal are not just winning matches, they are winning respect across the entire London football community. Staying with the goalkeeper, there is a milestone worth celebrating and analysing. David Raya has reached 100 Premier League appearances for Arsenal. In those 100 appearances, he has kept 43 clean sheets. And the context of that number is remarkable. The Premier League itself confirmed that Raya now has the joint 6th most clean sheets by any player in their first 100 appearances for a club in the competition's history. The names ahead of him on that list are Petr Cech with 59, Pepe Reina with 54, Ederson with 46, Alisson Becker with 44, and Peter Schmeichel with 44. Sharing that position with Alisson, Edwin van der Sar also has 43, sharing 6th with Raya. Think about what that means. Raya sits alongside Edwin van der Sar in terms of clean sheet efficiency in his first 100 appearances. He is in the same conversation as Cech, Reina, Ederson, Alisson and Schmeichel. Those are some of the greatest Premier League goalkeepers in history. To be placed among them at this stage of his Arsenal career is a genuine achievement. The evidence suggests Raya has been one of the most important and underappreciated parts of Arsenal's recent rise. 43 clean sheets in 100 games is not a coincidence. It is a reflection of excellent goalkeeping combined with a very well-organised defensive unit in front of him. And here is something that does not always get enough attention. Arsenal's third-choice goalkeeper, Tommy Setford, spoke this week about what it is like to train every day alongside David Raya and Kepa Arrizabalaga. And his words painted a vivid picture of the environment inside the Arsenal training ground. Setford said, "It is amazing, you learn a lot from them. They are like my two big brothers here. If I have got problems or I have got questions, I always go to them." He then added, "They are two amazing goalies with a lot of experience and a lot of good qualities. So to be able to train with them every single day and to learn that much is very memorable." And he finished by saying, "I always watch how David prepares for his games, what his habits are, how he does his warm-up, and I try to take that into my game as well." This is about culture. What Setford is describing is an environment where the most experienced players are mentoring the young ones. Raya is not just performing on match days, he is modelling professionalism in training every single day. A teenager like Setford watching that closely and deliberately absorbing those habits is exactly the kind of development Arsenal should be fostering. This is how clubs build long-term quality, not just by buying talent, but by creating a culture where the young players learn from the best every day. Now let's talk about a statistic that deserves serious attention. Jurrien Timber has been directly involved in more goal contributions than any other defender in the Premier League so far this season. His total is 8, made up of 3 goals and 5 assists. The next closest defender is his own Arsenal teammate Gabriel, who has 7 contributions with 3 goals and 4 assists. After that come Reece James of Chelsea with 6 and Patrick Dorgu of Manchester United also with 6. Think about that for a moment. The top 2 defenders in the entire Premier League by goal contributions both play for Arsenal. Timber and Gabriel, 1 and 2. That is extraordinary. In a competition with some of the best attacking fullbacks and centre-backs in world football, 2 Arsenal defenders are at the very top of that chart. And Timber's 8 contributions in particular represents something beyond just numbers. He is a player who had a serious injury that kept him out for nearly his entire first season at Arsenal. He came back, worked his way into the team and is now among the most productive defenders in England. That is a remarkable story of resilience and quality. Turning to the FA Cup, Arsenal face Mansfield Town in the 5th round this weekend, and Mansfield manager Nigel Clough spoke ahead of the match, and his words are worth examining because they are honest, intelligent and show real awareness. Clough said, "Our players know the golf. We are a bottom half of the League One table side playing against top of the Premier League. Without breaking a sweat, they could easily demolish us. But you just had a team from the National League North go and knock out the holders. These sorts of shocks can happen." He then added, "We do not know who they are going to play, but we know roughly what their formation will be. And we know that whichever Arsenal team is put out is going to be incredibly strong at set plays, especially corners. We can concentrate on those sorts of things. But in terms of the open play and what their individuals can do, it will be a bit more difficult to prepare for that." My analysis on this is direct. Clough is being completely realistic. He is not pretending his team can match Arsenal, but he is identifying the one realistic path to an upset, and that is set pieces. He acknowledges that in open play, Arsenal's individual quality will be too hard to stop. But at a corner or a dead ball, Mansfield could create one chance, one moment, and in cup football, one moment can change everything. Well, he referenced the shock result involving a National League North team beating the cup holders. That example was clearly in his mind as proof that upsets are possible. Arsenal must not be complacent, even with a rotated squad. This is a professional football match and it demands a professional approach. Arteta will know that, the players will know that, but the reminder is always worth making. 2 Arsenal legends have spoken this week about the club's position in the Premier League title race, and both of them were direct. Martin Ødegaard said, "Arsenal have shown remarkable consistency this season. They are not just winning, they are doing it with structure and intelligence." That analysis from Ødegaard is concise but accurate. Structure and intelligence. Those 2 words define what Arteta has built. This is not a team that wins through individual brilliance alone. It wins because everyone knows their role, the system is clear and decisions are made intelligently. Cohen played in some great Arsenal teams and he recognises quality when he sees it. His endorsement carries weight. And then there is Thierry Henry, perhaps the greatest player in Arsenal's modern history. Henry said, "I believe it will be the year we can finally win the title again. I will be there." 7 words at the end that hit differently. I will be there. Henry is not just predicting an Arsenal title. He is committing to being present for it. He wants to witness it. He wants to be part of that moment. For Arsenal supporters who grew up watching Henry score in those invincible seasons, those words carry enormous emotional weight. And then there is Arsène Wenger, the man who built the Arsenal that so many of us fell in love with. And this week, Wenger spoke about what Arsenal are doing this season. And his words are among the most thoughtful and compelling of the week. Wenger said, Arsenal are winning the league, no excuses, no explanations. They have everything it takes to do it. He continued, and if they win it, it will not be because their opponents were weak. In fact, this has been one of the greatest Premier League seasons of the century, a season where almost every team has had its moment at the top. He then described how different teams at different moments made people believe they could win the league. He mentioned Bournemouth, Sunderland, Chelsea, Liverpool, Aston Villa and Manchester City. He said at different moments, every one of these teams made people believe they could win the league, but through all of that chaos, there has been one team that kept standing. Arsenal. Constant, consistent, resilient. And then came the line that every Arsenal fan will want to hear. He said, when Arsenal win this league, it will not just be a title. It could be the beginning of a long and dominant era. That is the real warning to the rest of the league. Now, let me be clear. Wenger is offering his view on what he has observed this season. He is not making a guaranteed prediction, but the framing he used is deliberate and significant. He described the season as one of the greatest of the century in terms of competition. And then he said, Arsenal have been the one constant through all of it. Constant, consistent, resilient. Those three words from Wenger deserve to be written on the wall of every Arsenal training ground. The phrase, a long and dominant era, is the most striking part of his assessment. Wenger built a dominant era once before. He knows what the ingredients look like. And he is saying he sees those ingredients at Arsenal right now. That is not nothing. Away from Arsenal directly, but very much relevant to the wider football story. Former Arsenal sporting director Edu is expected to leave Nottingham Forest. He is currently the global head of football at Forest, but it has been reported that he has been asked to stay away from the training ground. He is still technically employed by the club, but Forest do not want the uncertainty around his future to overshadow their relegation fight. Edu and manager Nuno Espirito Santo are also reported to have clashed during the summer. And the overall picture at Forest is one of disappointment with the current recruitment strategy that Edu oversaw. My analysis here is not about Forest or Edu's record there. It is simply about how the football world continues to turn. Edu had a complicated final period at Arsenal before leaving. His move to Forest has not gone as hoped. The situation there is clearly broken down. And Forest are now in a fight to stay in the Premier League while dealing with this kind of off-field uncertainty. That is a difficult combination. This is perhaps the most emotional story of the week. Arsenal loanee Ethan Nwaneri had a very difficult night for Marseille against Toulouse in the Coupe de France quarter-final. The match was a 2-2 draw after 90 minutes and went to a penalty shootout. And Nwaneri came on at half-time, was given the responsibility of taking a penalty and missed. His strike went over the bar. Marseille were knocked out of the competition. And Nwaneri was seen in tears after the final whistle. The 18-year-old's performance statistics for the game tell the full story of a difficult evening. He had only 24 touches of the ball after coming on. He lost possession 7 times. His passing accuracy was 81%. He did not create a single chance. He failed to win any of his duels. And then he missed the penalty. French media were harsh. One outlet gave him 3.5 out of 10 and described him as making a discreet entrance before missing the decisive penalty. Another outlet gave him 1.5 out of 10 and wrote that he was too quiet in duels and imprecise in his passing. They described him as a passive participant rather than an active influence and said his introduction did nothing to change the team's attacking performance. A third outlet gave him 3 out of 10 and noted that his bursts of speed generally did not lead to clear-cut chances. Solfa score rated him 5.7 out of 10, the worst of all Marseille players that night. Those are painful numbers to read for any Arsenal supporter who has followed Nwaneri's development. But let me offer some balance here, because context matters. Nwaneri went to Marseille specifically because of Roberto De Zerbi, the Italian manager, whose attacking progressive style was considered ideal for a player of his profile. But De Zerbi was sacked just weeks after Nwaneri arrived. The manager who believed in him and signed off on the loan was gone almost immediately. And Nwaneri has been trying to find his footing under new management in a new country, in a new league at 18 years of age. That is an enormous challenge for any player. The evidence suggests the loan has been harder than anyone anticipated, largely because of circumstances outside of Nwaneri's control. Missing a penalty in a high-pressure shootout is something that has happened to far more experienced players than an 18-year-old. The way he responded with genuine emotion shows he cares deeply. That is not a negative quality in a young player. That is the foundation of a driven competitor. The real question for Arsenal is how they manage his development from here and whether this experience makes him stronger. Based on everything we know about how Arsenal handle their academy players, the belief at the club will be that it will. So let us pull all of these threads together. What does the full picture of Arsenal's week actually tell us? On the injury front, the situation is manageable but requires careful navigation. Ødegaard is expected back in late March at the earliest. Saliba missed Brighton but should be available for Leverkusen. White has no clear timeline. Merino is out for the season. That is 4 significant players unavailable. But Arsenal beat Brighton without 3 of those 4 names. The squad depth is real. On the awards front, Arsenal swept the London Football Awards and Declan Rice was named London's best Premier League player. The awards reflect something deeper than individual performances. They reflect a club that is operating at a consistently high level across all departments. On the statistics front, Timber leading all Premier League defenders in goal contributions and Raya having the joint 6th best clean sheet record in Premier League history in his first 100 appearances for a club. These are not soft numbers. These are hard, verifiable measures of excellence. On the mentality front, what Rice said at the awards ceremony, combined with what Keown observed, what Henry declared and what Wenger assessed, all points in the same direction. Arsenal in 2026 are a team with belief, structure, consistency and hunger. The legends of the club are watching and they believe this is the year. 7 points separate Arsenal from Manchester City at the top of the Premier League table right now, though City have a game in hand. The title race is not over, it is very much alive. And the weeks ahead against Leverkusen, Everton and the rest of the Champions League and Premier League fixtures will define everything. But here is the thing. Every story from this week, even the difficult ones, points toward a club that is moving forward with purpose. The injured players are being managed. The young players are learning, even through painful lessons. The experienced leaders are speaking clearly and confidently, and the results on the pitch have been coming. This is what a serious title challenge looks like. That is your full breakdown for today. Thank you for watching Melissa Arsenal Analysis. Oh, if you found this useful, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment below telling me which story this week you found most significant. I will see you in the next one.